Oh, it's time to talk draft, and nobody better to talk draft prospects with than the crew from Locked On NFL Draft. We got half of them. My boy Dane checking in after the Senior Bowl. We're going to hit some hot spots for the Jaguars. We'll do it in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Locked On Jaguars, where it's your team every day. And we thank you for making us your first listen. I am the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast, Tony Wiggins, and I'm glad you're here. We're also going to push you towards our YouTube page, which is Locked On Jaguars. Make sure you tap in every single day. Hit that like button, subscribe button, and make sure you hit the bell so you receive notifications each and every time we drop an episode. And then wherever you listen to your audio podcast, please check in at that location every day to make sure you don't miss an episode. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your jobs for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. I got something for free for y'all today, and I'm not gonna even be waiting, man. I gotta bring it up, man. There he is right there, the star, Damian Parson from TheDraftNetwork. My brother from another mother. We're going to dive right into it right here today. All first segment. I called it Dame time. You know what I'm saying? It's Dame time. What's up, brother?
What's going on, big bro? Man, I'm good, man. A little tired after that week-long trip last week, but it's always fun to do what you love.
I'm going to catch up with Keith Sanchez too, man. But it was easy for me to get, because I'm always trolling you and messing with you and talking about your comps and all of this stuff. By the way, you do as good a job at comping as I've ever seen, because I have seen some that have compared a 6'2" running back to a 5'10" running back. And I'm thinking, like, how in the hell did you come up with that comparison? So let's get right into it. I told Dame I'll keep it for the first segment. Jaguar fans know, and you probably know too, they need interior offensive line, interior defensive line, probably cornerback, big frame wide receiver, edge depth. We're going to act like free agency don't exist, because that's what the fans do anyway, because they think that we need to just, whatever our needs are, we need to address it in the first, second, third, and fourth round. Even if it's a center, we need to just take 4 centers. So we'll just get right to it. What did you see at the Senior Bowl? What are the strengths in terms of the guys that you know that weren't there and the people who were?
Man, I think one guy, especially on the interior offensive line, that I was impressed with was UConn's Christian Haynes. You know, listed at 6'2", 315. One thing I loved about him was he has that dog in him. And excuse me, if you watch the broadcast, you saw one-on-ones between him and I forget the defensive tackle from LSU. They got into a little bit of a scuffle.
Jefferson.
Guy snatched off Haynes' helmet, tossed it into the crowd of scouts and personnel that was there, right? Like, that's not what you wanted. Luckily, I was behind the whole action. I was not in front where the helmet went flying. But it was funny because the way that Haynes responded to that was he just stared him down, looked him dead in the eyes, and was like, if you're scared, go to church, man. Like, he strong-handed, he's physical, and that's why the guy got people, the clip is viral on Twitter. People are like, well, he gave up penetration. That happens, guys. Like, you'll get pushed back into the quarterback a little bit, but can you drop your anchor, and how quickly can you drop the anchor? He dropped his anchor, but not only did he drop the anchor, he had the hand strength. Once he latched his hands, no matter how much penetration you create, if you can't detach from the block, the quarterback can move freely around you if you can't do anything, and he couldn't move because Christian Haynes was so strong. He took snaps at center. He could play guard. This is an athletic young man, good footwork, lateral agility. And I think at the end of the day, one of the things I wanted to, and I think I've seen you tweet about it a lot, and I love the fact that you're honest with the fans. You guys got to get more physical and tougher on the front lines. And I think Haynes would bring that, especially thinking about trying to run. And hopefully we see more of, no disrespect to Travis Etienne, I want to see more of Tank Bigsby next year. You spent the 3rd-round pick on him. That's a physical runner. Get him the running lanes he needs to create and to make things happen. But, I mean, I know that tackle is also kind of a issue for you guys as well, especially in, like, the defensive line. And this is a solid interior defensive tackle class. And you think about guys, especially in the 1st round, if a Jerzon Newton or a Byron Murphy, second from Texas, and Jerzon from Illinois, if they were to slip down the board, I find that hard to pass on those guys. Now, the only problem is Trent Baalke's a height, weight, arm length type of guy. And like, that's where you can kind of get mixed up in this thing. Like, okay. So, and if that's the case, he will probably like someone, like two names that definitely will stand out is, of course, T'Vondre Sweat, the big boy, 6'4", 360. And I'm telling you now, he's every bit of that in person. And if you didn't see, like, I watched him in one-on-ones, he had a rep that went viral thing on Twitter where he basically turned the center into an accordion. He just basically put him on. I thought the kid was going to get hurt, to be honest with you. That's how powerful this guy is. They end up doing they did duo blocks to see in the run game. And typically you see guys like attack one block, try to shed it and split. I've never seen a defensive tackle take one hand to each blocker and part the Red Sea. And he did that, held his ground. Talking about a guy that could two gap, stop teams running the ball. So you think about having to deal with Jonathan Taylor and Anthony Richardson in Indy, right? Having to deal with that. You know that Tennessee are going to run the football with whoever's back there, whether it's Tajay Spears or you bring back Derrick Henry. Nonetheless, and eventually I expect Bobby Slowick and the Texans to get their run game going. So you got to be able to stop the run. But he also, for a 360-pound guy, and I feel like he's going to get that Jordan Davis type of hit, like whether it's going to probably be from a negative standpoint, like how long can you play him, how many snaps and all that. Yeah, miss me with all that stuff. Like, I want an impact player. I don't care about the math. I want an impact player, and T'Vondre Sweat, he's an impact player, I think, on all three downs. And I think that's again getting more physical, Tony. Like, that's a thing the Jacksonville Jaguars must do in this draft class. But I know a lot of fans will say, man, wide receiver, right? It's big. It's a big need. And I mean, I would like to see them bring back Calvin Ridley. I want Calvin Ridley back in Jacksonville because he gives you at worst a high-end wide receiver too. And if you can do that, then you look at bringing in a rookie that, and going back to Trevor Lawrence's time at Clemson, Justin Ross, T. Higgins, he's always had an infatuation for the 6'2", 6'3", 6'4" big body receivers. We've seen it with like Zay Jones. I think, and guys have been there before. And I think about Brian Thomas Jr. from LSU that should be within that range, 6'4", 205 pounds, should run sub 4.4 at the 40, right? Big, long, athletic kid. Troy Franklin, 6'3", 190 from Oregon, a burner. I'm expecting him to hit 4 threes. You think about a guy like that, but I'm telling you, this is my ideal pairing right here. Keon Coleman staying in Florida and joining the Jaguars, because there's a lot of talk about him potentially sliding. Now, talking to his agent, they're training for the combine. I think the lack of buzz right now, once he gets to Indy, and what I'm hearing, that might change. You know what I mean? When he jumps, runs, and everything. But still, I think people are just down on him, man. It's some of it. I think it's contrarianism. Like, people like, oh well, everybody loved him. I'm gonna be the one guy to be like, I'm a little low on them. It happens every draft cycle, right? But I think this is one of the better receivers in this class that you look at and say, man, I love what he brings. I would absolutely love having him on my team. And then Xavier Legette, who I saw down in Mobile as well, 6'1". Some people are like, oh, he's not 6'3". No, but he's probably going to jump 40, and he's clocked in at over 22 miles per hour like twice this year. And with everything I've heard, he's going to hit 4 threes at worst, right? So he'd be a 4.4 at worst, 4.3 at best. And I watched this kid move. He's built like A.J. Brown. Big, strong, quickly twitched up guy, but that explosiveness to run by guys. They won to practice last week. We saw guys get up in his grill, right? They want to play press man. Everybody's like, why he keeps running takeoffs? Well, there's a reason for that. If you want to play press, that's cool, because once I knock your hands down, I'm gonna just burn you. And that's what he was doing. Just the quarterbacks were not the most accurate, right? So I think Xavier Legette, like I said, pairing him with like a Calvin Ridley with Christian Kirk, I think that would Trevor Lawrence would be happy with that, man.
They're going to need to, if they do re-sign Ridley, with Ridley's cap figure and with Kirk's cap number, they're going to need more, right? So it has to be a young, talented guy. Fortunately for us, there's a lot of them. I know I said 10 minutes, Dan. Can I have you just for a little bit longer?
You're good.
All right. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to get into some of these guys, and then I'm going to actually I'm gonna tease this before I go. Dame is my receipt guy because Dame is one of the dudes who I really, really value his opinion. Dame, do you recall back in October-ish, I tweeted out something about that receiver from Washington, Rome, Aduns, and you said, Rome? You said, I haven't got into it yet, big bro, but I will. And now the dude's a top 10 pick. I don't know if you remember this, Dame, a couple of months ago. I said, ooh, this Christian Haynes kid at UConn can really play, but I wonder if he can play center because of those traits you mentioned. And now he looks like Rodney Hudson to me, body-wise, and with some of the things that he can get done. So I just had to toot my own horn real quick. Dame's going to stay with us for another segment, and we're going to talk about the Jaguars team building and how we could take some of these prospects down in Mobile and think about what they do for the Jaguars. We'll do that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. All right, man, I got to let y'all know about LinkedIn. That's right. I built 2 barbershops. Both times I needed help getting people to interview. Both times I used LinkedIn, and both times it was a success because LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the place to be when you want to hire somebody. It gives you access to professionals you can't find anywhere else. LinkedIn does all that while making the process easy and intuitive. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. So in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. And I have to let you know today's show is also brought to you and sponsored by FanDuel. Happy Super Bowl to all who celebrate from FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. If you're like me, Super Bowl Sunday is all about scoring the best seat on the couch, grabbing your favorite football snacks, and placing some super bets. Now, I have a parlay history in the Super Bowl of the last 10 years that 8 out of 10 I cash. That's 80%. That's pretty dang good. And not only can you win on who will win the Super Bowl, but FanDuel also has bets like which players will score a touchdown. New customers join today and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, segment 2 here with Dame. A little bit more Dame time than we thought we were going to have. So I'm going to comment on a couple of things that you said already, Dame. Which position? First of all, you're spot on with all of your comps. You're spot on with all of your stuff. There's been a lot of talk, too, about Ryan Nielsen coming to Jacksonville and the fact that they won't have, because the teams look at things in the future. They do have both corners under contract next season, but they won't have any under contract after 2024. With the way that they want to play, with Nielsen, with the stats showing, even though Trent Baalke says it's not true, that he's heavy man-to-man. A lot of people, including our own Joe Marino and Kyle Krabs on Locked On NFL Scouting, have put Quinyon Mitchell right there as another person that I talked about 3 months ago as I started my film study, and I was like, ooh, this dude just plays aggressive. Kind of reminds me of Chris Dishman, and I'm dating myself when it comes to talking about that, but that physicality a little bit. And it's hard to sometimes to qualify when a guy doesn't play at the highest level. But he went to the Senior Bowl and he backed up what you saw on tape, didn't he?
Oh, 100%. And I I sat down with him, interviewed him as well. You're talking about an intelligent young man, a young man that understands. And what I love about he's a competitor. So like he understands how to find his spots. And he plays according to the body type of his receiver. So whether it was Roman Wilson, who he battled with during practice for 2 days, being a smaller, more explosive, straight line, like speed threat, or if it was, Brendan Rice, the son of Jerry Rice, 6'3", 215, big guy. And then you go back to 2022, he faced Marvin Harrison Jr., and he had some good reps against MHJ, the best receiver in the whole 2024 NFL draft class. So he understands how to kind of pair and marry his game based on the threat that he has. And what I love about him and what we talked about off air was just a simple fact that they play a lot of quarters at Toledo. So he didn't have a lot of safety help. It was one-on-one. And he said, I wanted to come here and show that I can get on the line of scrimmage and I could play press man. And he did that. Did he have some ups and downs? Yeah, because he's kind of working on his technique at the same time. So I think for me, man, I think that would be a great fit, for Jacksonville, because he will play. He's very comfortable playing heavy man-to-man, press man, but also off-man quarters coverage where he could just kind of backpedal read. This is a quick twitch, explosive kid. 2022 Northern Illinois, he caught 4 interceptions in that game, right? Like his ball skills, I always said, be careful testing him, especially in off coverage, because he'll bait you to make you think that window is open. And when he plants that back foot to drive, his click and close is arguably the best in this class. Really twitched up young man. And I love him. Another guy, I think that, if they were to go corner, I think, man, Terrion Arnold from Alabama, listed at 6'1", 190. You talk like to me, truly the most fluid and easiest mover of all the cornerbacks. His transitions are outstanding. You talking about being able to flip, turn, get downhill. I remember watching, I actually cut the clip up. I'm probably going to tweet it soon this week. But I remember watching tape on him. He's playing zone, and he's baiting the quarterback from the nickel spot, like he was dropping off into deep thirds. And he read the quarterback's eyes. Quarterback tried to come down to the quick hitch outside, and he flipped his hips, turned, and broke. And I was like, man, like it was this close to being a pick six. And I said, this kid, he had a pick like that against Kentucky. Same thing, showing zone, bailing out, flipping the hips, reversing field, and getting downhill. Like, and he's a tackler. Like, again, bringing toughness. I remember against Georgia, they tried to run a toss sweep to his side on 4th and 1 because, they typically want to try and target a corner. They think they can either A, block, or the running back can run through. He took the block on, and he laid down the running back in the backfield for a loss, right? Giving his offense the ball back in the SEC championship game. So if that doesn't tell you what you need to know about a corner, that in the biggest game of the season to get to the playoffs, he's willing to put it all on the line. I think this is a young man that absolutely fit the culture that you guys need down in Jacksonville.
I saw him in high school. One of my friends, Michael Cornegay, we call him Corn Dog. He coached him. And he used to always put his tape up, and they used to put his basketball highlights up. Dude dunking the ball all kinds of ways. I remember a game, and I love Uncle Shannon. Shout out to Shay Shannon Sharp. Last year, they were playing Tennessee, and Shannon Sharp was saying, why is Alabama playing man-to-man? And Shannon's so busy, he don't follow recruiting. And I'm sitting there thinking, dude, they got the 2 best underclassmen cover corners probably in the country. So they're making mistakes, and they may not be making the right read, or they may not be doing. And their coach is a Hall of Famer, is the GOAT, and he's the defensive back coach by trade. I kind of think he knows what he's doing here.
I'll trust it.
Right. So of all of these positions, this is what I've been trying to get. And I'm going to get into this in segment 3 when you long gone, because that's when I start my therapy session with Jaguar fans. But of all of these positions, let's just say day 1, day 2, and day 3, we're going to assume that they have to give up their 3rd round pick for Calvin Ridley. Okay. Mm-hmm. Of all of these positions, if they do that, they're probably going to get a compensatory 3rd for losing Juwan Taylor last year. So let's just still say they have 3 picks. Which one of the picks in the positions of need can you not wait on? Like, they need everybody we just talked about. They need wide receiver, interior D-line, interior offensive line, and DB. But they got to have impact players this year, and we're assuming they're going to get 3 of them. Which one of those positions they are less likely to find in round 3?
Whew, that is tough because, man, I think if the position you're less likely to find between corner, receiver, O-line, D-line, I would probably say, truthfully, yeah, I would probably say receiver.
You're less likely to find that big separation. So the way I look at it is this: forget Trenton, his traits and all of that stuff, and don't worry about what they do in free agency. I say if they come up with a shutdown corner like Quinyon Mitchell, and there's a lot of them I like, believe me. I just don't think some of them are going to get to 17. And when they pick in the 2nd round, I think the guys that'll be there may just be guys you have to love, like Kyrie Jackson because of his length, or the kid from Rutgers. I really like him too, right? Yeah. And then there's some other guys. I like Josh Newton, but he's a little small, and he's feisty, but you wonder where he's going to play.
Yeah.
That kid from UCF, that wide receiver, though, I think.
Baker.
Listen to me,
Vaughn.
If you get him in the third round, you solve your can't have a high salary, but we got a guy that'll go up and get it and fight 100%. For the ball. So that's where I'm saying if you go wide receiver there, corner, I think in the second round, it is gold. Whether it's Christian Mahogany, whether it's Coleman, whether it's Haynes, you're going to get a starter on the interior of the offensive line right at that position. So am I right or am I wrong to think that?
No, you're right. I think because the two positions you definitely like. I think interior offensive line you can absolutely find second and third, and even in fourth round, in my opinion. Because you think about a guy like Kansas State, Cooper Beebe. That's a big bouncer, man. Like a physical, powerful dude.
He'll throw you out the club, right?
Oh, he's gonna throw you out the club, man. I love watching his tape and everything. So I think the receiver and cornerback situation is where you want to either, because I think especially second round, you could still get a good receiver if you want to go receiver in the second round. Third, I mean, don't get me wrong, this is one of the deeper receiver classes, but it's like for me, I think about all right, like you said, if you lose Calvin, all right, do you want to try and hope to get an impact player round 3? That's hard to do. Like I said, but a Javon Baker, who I think he did make himself some money down in Mobile because he had some reps where he was cooking cats, man, like really good. A Brendan Rice, talking about a guy that, like I said, 6'3", big body guy that Trevor Lawrence will absolutely love, that has good open field speed. Is he totally different game from his dad? His dad was a route runner, savvy, nuanced. This kid is big, strong, physical. Talk to one of the DBs that face him in practice. He said, listen, you see how he looks? And I was like, yeah. He said, that's how he plays. I was like, man, you can't be physical with Brendan Rice like that because he wants that. Like he's going to welcome that challenge. And I'm telling you, day one, he drew 3 defensive pass interference penalties. He caught all 3 passes on those plays. So in one-on-one. So this is a talented young man that you probably could get round 3. So I think receiver or DB should be that first round pick. And then you can go D tackle and interior offensive lineman, whether it's that second, third round, or even into the fourth, depends on which position you decide to prioritize.
Last question, and I know I'm overshooting the runway here with my time, but where do you see Braden Fiske? Because I watched every Florida State game for the last 10 years. And I've been trying to tell people that they may not have had the depth that Georgia had, but with their starters at certain critical positions, they could have played with anybody at least for 3 quarters. Right?
Yeah. That game against Georgia would have been a lot different if they had all their starters in that game.
Right. So I'm looking at Fiske and I'm thinking 3 technique in a 4-3, but then I'm thinking in an odd front, just line him up, let him 2 gap. I don't care. And then I'm thinking, okay, well, if you really have to play him, you can big in him and play him at a 4B or a 5 technique or whatever because of his quickness and his ability to move laterally. What do you see with him?
Same thing. This is a quick foot first step, strong kid. Like, and he has hand counters too. You know what I mean? The rip, push, pull, long arm into the rip technique. He one-on-ones, man. Like, you know, I think arm length probably might be a little bit shorter than you ideally like, but I think he's listed at like 6'4", 300 pounds, 305, somewhere in there. And he plays like it. Like I say, he's quick, he's strong, physical at the point of attack, and he plays with an uncoachable motor. Like you don't have to amp this young man up. He's like that every play. Like, so you hear the pop of his hands on pads when you're right up there on the line of scrimmage and one-on-ones. Like I loved watching him on tape, but I loved watching him down in Mobile, just watching him work. This is a guy. That's another guy I thought interior D line. If they can get out of day one with who they want, day 2, if you can go, you know, whichever the wide receiver, corner, second round, I think Fiske could be right there at the top of that third round, waiting for somebody to snatch him and make him an impact player on their D line.
I'm gonna leave you with this comp. I hate comparing white guys to white guys, but man, he reminds me of Kyle Williams. He does.
Oh, yeah.
He just reminds me of Kyle Williams.
I love that.
Retired Kyle Williams. So look, we're gonna do this again, man. We run out of time. We probably do this. We do this 2 hours, man. But I know you got to go. You got people hitting you up and all of that. So good luck to you. You can be check them out at the Draft Network. Also, if you follow Clemson, you're still doing Locked On Clemson, correct?
No, actually, I stopped doing.
You stopped doing Locked On.
I stopped doing it, but I'm in the thought process of maybe taking it back over. We'll see.
Right. So busy during draft season, but we can find you on Locked On NFL Draft with Keith Sanchez, correct?
Absolutely. Locked On NFL Draft with Keith Sanchez and the Draft Network, all the scouting reports, everything like that. So, and of course on Twitter.
There you go. That's Dame time. Dame Parson, one of my good friends who I ain't gonna call him my little brother no more. He's my big brother now because he is a film watching junkie. We'll have you back, man, and we appreciate you joining us here on Locked On Jaguar.
Yes, sir.
All right, man. So we rolling along here, Locked On Jaguars. We overshot it a little bit, but it was more than worth it with Dame Parsons. We will hit the third final segment and talk about how this all impacts the Jaguars. We'll do it in just a second. All right, I got to let you know about eBay Motors. That's right, eBay Motors, man. When you're talking about getting your parts for your car correct and making sure you have the ones that fit, and then the ones that also fit your passion and your drives. A lot of time, your car represents, it's a part of who you are, your identity. You want to make sure you take care of your ride or die. And eBay Motors has everything you need. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Motors Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or you get your money back. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit. Only available to U.S. customers, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not your cash. And I got to let you know that DoorDash is your sponsor for today's show. Also, hey, man, with that game coming up Sunday, you guys better make sure you have all of your food needs in order. If you don't, you better call DoorDash, because they're the ones that'll get your food to you hot and ready, and they'll give it to you on time. So you get 50% off up to $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter the code LOCK23. Now, that's subject to change in terms apply. So I'll read it to you again. Get 50% off up to $10 value when you spend $15 or more for your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter the code LOCK23. Subject to change. Terms apply. All right, third, final segment here on Locked On Jaguars. We thank Damian Parson, Dame Time, for joining us here. And make sure I give you his information here once again, man. You can tap in. It's at DP. It's all capitalized, at DP_NFL. He's one of the best in the business, man. And he really gets deep down inside. He knows all of the ins and outs of scouting, teams' tendencies. You notice how he was able to mention the Jags. Now, he covers all of the teams, but he was able to mention the Jaguars, and he mentioned it. And he talked about the guys that he had mentioned. They don't necessarily have the traits that Trent Baalke wants. So what does Trent have to do? Trent has to find out a way to make starters that are starting on a good football team now into depth players as you get more and more talent. Also, if they re-sign Ridley, they're not going to sign T. Higgins. That's just too much money with Ridley, Higgins, as well as Kirk. You just can't allocate that many funds to the wide receiver position. That's why they need an impact wide receiver. Even if they do sign Calvin Ridley, they need an impact X receiver, in my opinion. But he has to be a young guy. It has to be a young guy to make it all fit. And then Parker Washington will be your fourth receiver. What other players on this roster, as you're adding players, have to be depth pieces? We talked about Fisk from Florida State. If he came in, does that mean that Adam Gostis or guys like that or Roy Robertson-Harris they don't have a place? Sure they do. They just need to move down as depth guys. So some of the names that you know and people that you like and folks that you think are starters, they're starters on a 9-win team for a reason. The Jaguars need to add more high-end talent and try to make some of these guys, whether through restructuring their contract or if they don't count a whole bunch against the cap, just moving them down a little bit and making them understand that you're now a depth guy. You can be a ceiling guy or a floor guy as long as you move that thing in the right direction. So I'm looking forward to see how the Jaguars evaluate their roster. They may not draft a guy where there's an absolute hole right now. They may just draft a guy who's better than the dude that they have already at those certain positions. There are a lot of things that affect play calling. There are a lot of things that affect their approach and what they believe they can do. And a coach would be crazy to go out and do things that they know that they're not capable of. So some of these draft picks may be things that they add that you don't necessarily think that they need, but they realize because they know why they called those plays. They know their kids' weaknesses way better than you do. They just don't broadcast it. sometimes the tape and the game broadcast it for them. But I guarantee you they're hiding behind a lot of guys, right? They're going to, fix those guys up. That's why I said the offensive line, because everybody last year when they was talking about Walker Little, I was like, no, he needs to just be a depth guy and fight his way through. You cannot take chances no more or anymore during Trevor Lawrence, this part of his development, and where they are as far as their tenure with the Jaguars. They have to get impact players. So that's what we're focusing on when we talk to people here on Locked On Jaguars. We're talking about impact players, guys that can make an immediate difference to try to get this team over the hump. I ain't interested in saving people's jobs, but if the Jaguars make the playoffs, then that'll at least justify keeping more and more people. So there it is, man. Make sure you check Damian Parson out on Twitter. We'll get him back. We're going to get Keith Sanchez in here too, because I know you guys like nothing more than talking about prospects and hearing it from the people that cover the teams on a daily basis. You guys take care of each other. We'll see you next time here on Locked On Jaguars.